songs forever linked with movies. Yes, I don't think people talk about this subject matter enough because it's something that we all know and we all do it in our day-to-day lives when talking about pop culture things, whether it's songs, movies, things like this, TV shows even. And we just gloss over it because it's just something we all can agree on and it's not something that people question, right? Hold on. Don't jump ahead in terms of... Oh, I forgot the chat's not on the screen. Don't jump ahead in terms of the songs and the movies. If you want to guess one, I'll let you know if you're correct. Okay. So let's talk about first. What does that mean? When you think of a movie or a particular scene, you instantly think of the song and vice versa. I'm not going to give the examples because obviously it's the PowerPoint. So just stay tuned. After the movie is released, you will hear phrases like, that song's from that movie, or I've heard it before, I think it was in a movie, something along with movie and song. Usually you hear this before, right? And in other forms of media, references to the song and movie are usually tied in together and have other and also is also being mentioned. So for example, if Family Guy did a joke about a certain movie and they had a song that was really tied to that movie, usually Family Guy would do a joke that is connected to that, to that movie slash song, whatever. I'm a bad student, sorry. All good, bro. But I think that's something that you can, think about in your head, right? So what is not in the criteria, in my opinion, are biopic movies, obviously, because the movie is about a certain artist and their songs are obviously going to be tied to the movie and the life of that person. So I don't think those movies should count. Maybe a biopic movie that was about someone who's not a musician could count, but I tend to not think that any song is usually tied with that specific person. At least in my life. Maybe you guys can give me some examples of when that was the case, but most times they don't have anything. And no instrumentals. I think instrumentals are a cheat code in this subject matter because a lot of the instrumentals are made with that scene in particular in mind. Like they show them a scene and they were like, oh, I want you to make something that kind of gives off this energy. A good example is the Imperial March in Star Wars. If you don't know what that instrumental sounds like, it's the most iconic one. It's the one that goes dun 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 dun. You know that one, right? So that instrumental is so iconic because of Star Wars. But in my opinion, if that producer had multiple variations of that same army imposing galactic kind of approach to the theme of the song or the instrumental, a lot of it could have worked, right? Tokyo Drift and Fast and Furious, I don't know if it was made for the movie or if it was a song by Teriyaki Boys that was already out there in the world, but that's a good example, right? Sorry, I can't stop guessing the songs, chatting and watch. No, don't worry about it. I don't mind interacting with people in the chat, right? So we're gonna get to the very first song. I think this is probably the best example of this. So let's get to it, right? Rocky 3 in Eye of the Tiger. Can anybody think of a song that is tied to a movie more than Eye of the Tiger? It's the Eye of the Tiger, it's the thrill of the fight, right? Sylvester Stallone, Rocky, he asked Survivor to make an anthem for the movie after getting rejected by Queen for wanting to use Another One Bites the Dust. And I'm so glad that they turned it down because Another One Bites the Dust does not fit the theme of Rocky, in my opinion. It's a little bit more disco-y, soft rock kind of, themes, and Another One Bites the Dust. I guess the message is beating your opponent and then, you stepping over them kind of, rhetoric, but it doesn't have that kind of hunger. It doesn't have that vitriol to wanting to succeed, that level of focus that a tiger has when it catches its prey. That kind of feeling that a boxer has when going into a ring, especially when they don't know if they're gonna beat, Mr. T. Mr. T at that time was the peak, in terms of masculine, kind of doing super masculine things. So to beat him, you had to be, better than him in a sense. The lyrics perfectly describe what Rocky is going through and needing to have the level of focus, like I mentioned earlier. So Rocky at that point in my recollection, I think he lost to Mr. T previously, so it's kind of hard for him to like, you know, think of beating him without having that level of determination, right? But it's not really a soundtrack per se. Soundtrack is not necessarily not wrong in this case, because I think there are some songs with the movie in mind, like they asked them to make a song for this, that it still works. Now, I think sometimes it's better if the song already had a lifespan or an existence previous to the movie, but in my opinion, sometimes if the song is just as famous as the movie, it doesn't really do much for people in terms of discussions. Like a good example would be Chuck Berry, Johnny Be Good, and Back to the Future. You know, when Marty McFly plays it in the prom and he's like doing a really good rendition of it. Yeah, that scene is iconic and everybody knows it, but I wouldn't say people think of the movie when they hear the song Johnny Be Good, or they don't think of the song Johnny Be Good when they think of Back to the Future. You know, when they think of Back to the Future, they think of the doc, they think of the premise of going to the future, the DeLorean, things like this. But when you think of Rocky, other than the character, you think of Eye of the Tiger. Like when you hear Eye of the Tiger, you think of Rocky, right? So I think it works better in that, like, you know, that makes sense, right? Or am I tripping? And what makes Eye of the Tiger one of the best examples of this is that other sports movies have yet to recreate this dynamic of a song that pairs up with a sports movie. No other sports movie has made this like song, like made a song just as popular, right? True, right. So I think until a sport, like I can't think of any sports movie that has iconic movie scenes, and maybe that is like boxing helps it a lot because there is this such thing as like a walkout music. WWE has this same thing, so maybe that already plays a part in terms of like doing this. I don't know if they were doing this previous to the Rocky movie, the Rocky trilogies of like a walkout. Like were they doing this in the 60s and the 70s? Did boxers come out to music, or was it just like the crowd cheering, getting ready for a fight? You know, so this could have started a trend. I'm just ignorant to the fact that I don't know if it did, but in my lifetime, every time a boxer, an MMA fighter, a WWE wrestler, any physical combat sport, they have a song and they have like a crowd with them, or they have the artist singing the song as they walk out. So, you know, it's like building up hype and suspense and all that kind of stuff. So I think Rocky, Eye of the Tiger, one of the best examples, right? So let's go to the second one. This one might be a little bit of a, you know, a niche one, but I think it plays a part. Now we have Trainspotting in Lust for Life. Now, this one was hard for me because on my YouTube channel, I did a whole video talking about the best movie soundtrack playlist of all time. And I think it's Trainspotting. Spoilers, you know, for everybody who hasn't watched it. But that's one of my favorite videos of all time. So if you haven't seen it, go see it. You will be amazed by just the detail that I took to make that video. But what I was saying is that Lust for Life and Born Slippy Underworld, an electronic techno song from the 90s, are really iconic because of the movie. Like literally, you think of the scene, you can think of the movie for both of the songs. So I low-key struggle to pick which one, but I ultimately went for Lust for Life by Iggy Pop because I think it's super memorable because it's the very first sound you hear in the movie. You put the movie on, you hear the drums, dun, 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 and then instantly they start running, right? And then Renton, the guy right here, he gives off his poem, which is Choose Life. Choose, you know, he goes into this whole poem about the dullness, the grayness in terms of choosing a normal life, and why should he choose all these things when, you know, he rather be sedated by drugs, by hardcore drugs. I don't know if I can say the drugs on Twitch, but it starts with an H and you inject it basically, right? And a lot of people think the song lyrics of Lust for Life and the poem are kind of polarizing, contradicting each other. One's about wanting to live a better life, while one's talking about I don't care about living a normal life as long as I have my, you know, my high. Which you would think sounds different, but after you watch the whole movie and you come back to this, you understand that this was Renton, the main character, is a true desire within himself of a reflection of what he truly desires. That the song was the internal things about him of like, I don't want to keep living this life. I want to change my life. And the whole movie is about him trying to get off his addiction and trying to live a better life. But his friends, the drug, circumstances keep drawing him back into that life. We know hardships and all this stuff into the, So Lust for Life pairs up really well once you watch the movie and everything like that. So when I realized that when I was watching it, I said, oh, this makes a lot of sense. Makes perfect sense in my opinion, right? And it's like a super iconic scene. This scene right here where they're running away from the cops and you don't know why, but they're dropping things and stuff like that. This has been referenced in so many TV shows, movies, not books. YouTube videos and things like this. So it's already iconic movie cinematography, alongside with the soundtrack playlist being recognized as one of the greatest movie soundtracks. Some people like to say Guardians of the Galaxy or Pulp Fiction are really big contenders for this soundtrack. Like, what's the best movie soundtrack? To me, it's Trainspotting. It's not even a question. But if you haven't seen this movie, I know it's like maybe underrated, or it's not like the super mainstream when you think of like movies and stuff like that, but it's phenomenal. One of the best drug junkie addiction movies out there. Requiem for a Dream is in the same ballpark, but this one has a lot more comedy, a lot more character development, things like that I personally enjoy a lot more. And it's not as dark as Requiem for a Dream. So yeah, basically. All right, next one, Titanic and My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion. I think everybody probably thought of this song in this example when thinking of the most iconic movie song pairings of each other, because let's face it, it probably is. Not only is Titanic one of the most successful grossing movies of all time, but Celine Dion's My Heart Will Go On is up there with it. And the success of the movie helped the success of the song, and the success of the song helped the success of the movie. So it's a symbiotic relationship in terms of that they were able to like connect to each other. The most romantic movie ever made that made the most money paired up with the rookie up and coming heartthrob actor from the 90s, Leonardo DiCaprio, right? He's like seen as like the face of acting, especially for white people. And Celine Dion, this Canadian singer that, sure, she was big, but after this, she has a song that will never die. It's a classic, instant banger. And even in her music video, she uses the movie to reference it. She has the boat, she has the things. And think about this, when you go on cruise ships, or when you go on any boat really, and you stand at the front of the boat, I don't know what that's technically called, the stern or whatever term it is, people instantly put their arms out and you just hear the whistle of the, you just get that kind of like feeling of like the wind blowing you, and you think of the scene instantly. You don't even have to sing the song, you don't have to see the imagery, you just go to the boat, do that, and people say, oh, he's doing the Titanic pose, and then think of the movie, and then think of the song. Come on now, like, like so many people don't even know the name of the song. I bet you most people think of it as Titanic theme or the Titanic song. In fact, this is probably one of the most popular movie scenes and movie pictures, just like this image of them on the boat, ever. And the song pairs up with that, So, banger, right? Oh, what? Hold on. I just clicked something. Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of going through these quick, but let me know your thoughts. James Horner worked with My Heart Will Go On, right, for Titanic, right? I'm not sure. Did James Horner do that? I mean, I know the song was made for the movie, so I'm not surprised if somebody wrote it. It definitely wasn't. I mean, it could have been Celine Dion. I don't know. But if James Horner did, that explains a lot of why it's so good, because it is. And lots of other songs in the Titanic scene use the same, like, vibe / vocal melodies. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because it has that kind of romantic, kind of aspirational kind of feeling of, choosing who you want to be with. The whole scene, the whole movie basically is a movie about cheating. It's about how Rose doesn't want to be with the partner she was paired up with being, and she wants to be with Jack. And that's kind of like the whole my heart chooses to be with this person, even though my circumstances make me choose to be with somebody else. Like James Homer say, here it's like say. Okay, wow, I didn't know that. Okay, that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, even just listening to the lyrics of My Heart Will Go On, it pairs up really well, 100%. Now we're going to the next one. I forgot which one is the next one. I think I know, but let me know what you guys think. Before I get onto it, what song do you think is next? What song do you think should pairs up with the movie really well? I know you guessed Strike earlier, which I'm not going to expose whether or not that's correct or not, but let me know another one. I want to know if you're you know, smart enough. Let me drink some coffee in the meantime. I haven't seen Titanic in so long. I think I've only seen it once. I couldn't tell you anything other than the movie, other than the scene, other than the fact that Jack and Rose could have fit on the door, you know, other than that, which I think is super ironic. I don't know. Okay, bet. Let's go into the next one. Fast and Furious 7 and See You Again. This one is a more modern movie in terms of like it hasn't had enough time compared to the other movies I've mentioned where they were in the 90s or in the 80s, 70s, or you know, movies. So this one is fairly recent, but it hits just as hard as same. Anybody who was born late millennials, Gen Z or Gen Alpha who saw this movie and was alive when this movie came out and was aware about Paul Walker and all this and who's watched all the Fast and Furious movies. That's why I was kind of laughing, or not laughing, but kind of like, ooh, he's getting close when you mentioned Tokyo Drift earlier, is because Tokyo Drift was who me as a fan of the earlier Fast and Furious movies would have went for. But See You Again is just one of those songs that was on the radio 24/7. Tokyo Drift is more if you are into the movies of Fast and Furious, but if you were just on the radio or just alive on the internet, you saw this meme, you saw all these things of relating to Paul Walker dying, R.I.P. Paul, all these things. See You Again was paired up with it. And the fact that it's made by Wiz Khalifa, it's like, yo, I gotta give I like Wiz. You know, it's dope that he got a diamond hit song. Yeah. To be honest, okay, so this is not necessarily a positive when it comes to See You Again and Fast and Furious argument, is that there's so many Fast and Furiouses out there that a lot of them kind of merge into one, for me at least, because I stopped watching after 7. So yeah, I know there's stunts and I know there's girls and there's cars and things like that. It's like a spy, you know, action-packed stunt movie. But for the longest time, there's not that many scenes from the later movies after like 4, Fast and Furious 4, that I think are memorable. But this one, because of the song, because of Paul Walker's death, it's super memorable. And I would argue that it's probably Fast and Furious' most arguable, most memorable scene about them drifting away, them parting ways and things like that. Obviously, you know, he dies in real life, so that makes it even more of an emotional tie to the scene. But it's super just like, you know, Fast and Furious fell off after this, in my opinion. I think they should have just ended the series, ended the movie, whatever you call it, sequel, trilogy, series, whatever, after this. It's a funeral song. So many people play it at funerals. So many people pair it up with friendships ending. It's like a meme kind of thing where they like make like sad edits to it and things like this. And it is a sad song. It is talking about like wanting to see somebody who you love and things like that once again. You don't want it to be the end and all this stuff, but sometimes you just have to realize it, and this is more of like a refusing to realize it verbally, but you know, internally you understand that this might be the end, but I'm glad it ended off on a good note kind of thing, which I respect. It's also associated with Paul Walker. And yeah, there's just millions of things outside of the song in the movie that this song is. And it's like, you couldn't get away from it. It's hard to see this song and not think of the movie or Paul Walker and stuff like that. So it only makes sense, right? It only makes sense. I don't have much else to say about it because it's kind of like one of those obvious ones. But yeah, I don't really remember the movie that much for me to actually comment it. And I'm not gonna go watch Fast and Furious 7 just for this video because I feel like I'm gonna remember as soon as I watch it. Like, oh yeah, they're jumping over buildings with cars and all that kind of shit. And I feel like it's just not really that needed. So let's go on to the next one. I think this one is gonna be another underrated one. White Chicks and 1,000 Miles. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na. And I need you. Da-na-na-na-na-na. And I miss you. Right? This one is a little bit of a tricky one because the song is more tied to this scene of Terry Crews and that meme that was spread over the early 2010s of the movie, internet and stuff like that. But regardless, it's still a very memorable scene in movie history, right? The polarizing difference, same thing that happened earlier when I was mentioning about Mr. T and Rocky about having this hyper masculine presenting character. Terry Crews is that in a more comedic relief of him being a hyper masculine, muscular black dude, him pursuing this like really weird looking white girl, but just because she's white, that's all he's like fogged by. Like he can't see anything else than her skin tone, and that makes him like pursue him, like white chocolate and all that kind of stuff, right? You're melting. Like that scene is so funny because the voice, I forgot which of the sisters or the Wayne brothers is like playing, which I forgot what their names were, but the hyper masculine black dude, and this could be a little stereotypical racist, white supremacy play right here, that you're having this super muscular black dude pursuing this white woman, and as soon as she plays this white suburban girl music that you think would throw off Terry Crews and him gonna be like super, man, turn on some hip hop, I ain't trying to hear that shit, put us on some 50 Cent, I'm trying to get shot, right? You would think that's what he would be into, but no, he's into this stuff, which is where the comedy comes in. And then the fact that he sings it, he's shaking his head, he's really into it. It's just like, oh, this is a memorable scene. The internet obviously helped to make this scene even more memorable. If the scene wasn't included, there would have been some memorable scenes from Terry Crews, like the whole white chocolate, all this kind of stuff. Even the end when he finds out he's a guy, he doesn't give a fuck or whatever. But it's kind of like that. And yeah, I think the song is forever tied with it. You hear the song, you instantly do the shaking your head, and I need you, and I miss, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it's a no-brainer. Yo, what's good, Jewel? Now I'm going into another one, which I think might be another guess, Jelly Bear TV. You might have guessed it earlier, which you're probably going to be, applaud yourself. Shrek and All Star by Smash Mouth. If you guys don't remember this song, this is the one where it's like, you're an all-star, get paid, all that glitters is gold. The somebody once told me the world was gonna roll me. Now, a lot of people know the meme edit of like somebody told me the world was macaroni kind of thing. But before that meme came out, everybody associated this song with Shrek. It was the first song of the movie and it's the first introduction of Shrek. When he comes out his house, he's, bathing in mud and eating insects and stuff like that. We get a real sense of what it is an ogre, right? He's our first. Before Shrek, I don't even know if I could have named another ogre. Maybe a troll under the bridge or something. But in terms of like fantasy characters or fantasy races, an ogre, like I didn't know what it was before Shrek. So it was our first introduction, All-Star, right? But a lot of people think it's just like a cheesy song from the 90s that they just put, that was like maybe popular on the radio for a few weeks, and just paired it up with this indie kind of DreamWorks film that was competing with Disney, and it wasn't like a super hit at the time, so they didn't have a lot of budget to get maybe like a super popular song, right? Yeah, that's another good one by Shrek, 100%. There's I Have a Fever, or I Need a Hero, when Fairy Godmother sings it and she's like with Prince Charming and Shrek. That's another good one that pairs up with the movie. But this one, because it's the introduction to Shrek, I think it really ties in with the character a lot more than people realize. The song is about stepping out of your comfort zone and achieving what you really are as a person. It's about being the person that deep down you really are, but are afraid to, do, because you're stuck in this comfort zone. You're stuck in your swamp. And Shrek, who we learn to, love at the end of the movie, goes through the same exact journey. He's somebody who's insecure. He's somebody who's told all his life, you're an ogre. He was abandoned by his father. He lives in a swamp in isolation. He doesn't want to deal with anybody. He has no aspirations of, being in love or having a family or nothing, right? But he's set up through, he's forced to step out of his swamp to go and help Fiona because of Farquaad threatening to destroy his swamp and stuff like that. So in order for him to preserve his isolation, preserve his comfort zone, he chooses to go and do it. And because he chooses to do that, he becomes not an ogre. Well, he is an ogre, but not only is he an ogre, but he becomes the hero. It's a hero's journey movie, and nobody realizes that because they're looking at the external things of Shrek. And in Shrek 2, when Prince Charming is introduced, we are like, oh, that's what should have looked like the hero. That's what everybody thinks. That's a stereotypical look. His name, even Prince Charming, it doesn't get more stereotypical kind of prince like that. But he's a villain. He's not all that glitters is gold. He's, a piece of shit. And Shrek, who you would think would be the villain in most movies, is not, showing that there is an internal beauty. Same thing with Fiona. She chooses to go with who she truly feels like she is, being an ogre and being, with Shrek, than being the princess who her father and her family wants her to be. The princess, fulfill your role as royal and all this stuff. Donkey does the same thing when he chooses to be with the dragon, somebody who stereotypically a donkey and a dragon is a weird pairing, but it all works. So this being who you are, being true to yourself, being the hero, stepping out of your cocoon, your swamp, your comfort zone, it all pairs up with the very first song. And most people, when they go back and listen to the song, they're not going to think, oh, this is a glimpse into what the story of Shrek is going to be about. Most people don't even know what Shrek's going to be about when they first watch the first movie. But when you get to the end of the trilogy, when you get to the end of the series, you're like, wow, Shrek, not only is he memeable, is he funny, he has his moments, he's a good guy, but he has morals, he has values, he's a great character, he's somebody who can teach you about not judging a book by its cover. And the fact that it's based around a fairy tale book and all this stuff, it's Shrek, it's a classic, it's a banger. It's what else more can you think about when you think about great movies and great pairings? And it's an underrated one for sure. Far Away, it's so many jokes and everything in it. This is obviously the more popular one, 100%. That's the end of the PowerPoint. If you guys wanted any criticisms or maybe you could say opposing views about any of them, let me know, or what you guys think should have been on the list or shouldn't have been on the list, I guess you could say. Just let me know your thoughts in the chat or in the comments.